Have you heard of metabolic inefficiency? Probably not. Let me tell you why. My name is Dr. Droliviajoseph, and I've been a functional medicine practitioner for 20 years, and I absolutely love what I do. I love the testing that we do to get to root cause issues. And the reason you've probably never heard of metabolic inefficiency is because I made it up. So metabolic syndrome is something that the healthcare profession has been studying for well over a decade. Metabolic syndrome is when you have 3 out of 4 of the following things: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high blood sugar, which could be diabetes or prediabetes, and abdominal obesity, which is storing fat in the abdominal area, which we know is more dangerous. Now, metabolic syndrome is the leading cause of cardiovascular disease in the US. And the leading cause of death in the United States is cardiovascular disease. So it's a big deal, and we're clearly not managing it well. And it's not because we don't have enough medication. We have more diabetic medications out right now than ever before. More cholesterol medicine out right now than ever before. More blood pressure and cardiovascular meds out now than ever before. And we have tons and tons of screening tools, right? We have calcium scores, carotid artery score, carotid ultrasound. We've got EKGs, echocardiograms, angiograms. There's so much testing out there, but yet the rate of cardiac death is not going down. So my contention point is that if we can catch this when you become metabolically inefficient, you can stop it from happening and reverse it. So what is metabolic inefficiency? I'm not going to talk about blood pressure. I'm going to flip the card. Metabolic inefficiency is when I start to see insulin levels going up. I see them going up 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Once they're in the double digits, you are metabolically inefficient. But you can still have a normal A1C. Your fasting glucose might not even be too high yet. So we want your fasting glucose to be around 80. We want your A1C to be around a 5.4. And we want that fasting insulin to be between a 4.5 and a 6.5. And when those markers are high, you have a problem with glucose metabolism. It doesn't mean you're diabetic or even pre-diabetic. At that point, you're insulin resistant when your insulin levels are high. That's the best time to catch a glucose metabolism issue. Because what happens when insulin levels are high is it's a fat storing hormone, very, very inflammatory. It can raise C-reactive protein, which is an inflammatory cardiac marker. But the other thing that happens when you become insulin resistant is you can't lose weight. You store that fat in your belly. Inflammation goes up. Cardiac risk goes up. So that's when we see the blood sugar piece. Let's talk about the lipid piece. Cholesterol. I am way more concerned nowadays with a triglyceride HDL ratio than I am with total cholesterol. I do still look at LDL HDL ratio, but one thing I'll tell you about LDL, it's not very dietary, it's not very dietary, it's not very dietary. It's very genetic. And there are things you can do to become more metabolically efficient. One thing I'm a huge fan of is berberine, because I see berberine improve fasting insulin levels. I see berberine help people who have difficulty losing weight, especially in the belly area. I also see berberine improve people's lipid metabolism. So there's a lot of other things you can do for cholesterol and lipids. There's plant sterols. There's red yeast rice, which I'm not a huge fan of. There are things like bergamot, which is pretty good for LDLs. There's a lot of things out there. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. I'm not so worried about the number. I'm worried about the big metabolic picture, which means check your thyroid. When your thyroid starts to slow down, TSH starts to go up. When your thyroid is going slower than it should be between a 1 and a 2. If you're creeping into the 3s, low 4s, you have subclinical hypothyroidism, which I believe should be addressed, but not every practitioner agrees with me because it's in the normal range. No, that is not normal. What we know, when the thyroid slows down, cholesterol goes up. Interesting. What we know, when the thyroid slows down, glucose metabolism issues glitch. We also know that when you have a glucose metabolism glitch, or when you're metabolically inefficient, is it starts to negatively impact thyroid and cholesterol. So you see what a vicious cycle this is? I'm gaining weight in the belly area. I can't lose weight. I'm tired. My TSH is going up. My fasting insulin's going up, my cholesterol's going up. What do I do? Well, if you look at what most Americans are doing, they're medicated for these things. And I think medication has a time and a place. But I also think medication gives people a false sense of security that problems aren't going to happen. And that is simply not true when you look at the facts and when you look at the statistics. So I'm a huge fan of early detection for everything. I don't care if we're talking about hormonal imbalances, cancer, or metabolic syndrome, or digestive issues. I work with all of it. Autoimmunity, I work with all of it. What I'm telling you is that if we start screening everybody's thyroid properly, not just a TSH. We want a TSH. I definitely want a free T3. I want a T3 uptake to know if hormones are involved, because hormones can mess with a lot of these things that I'm talking about. And I also want to check thyroid antibodies for autoimmunity, attacking the thyroid, causing the thyroid to slowly decline. So we've got to check the thyroid properly. We need to not just look at glucose or A1C. We need to look at glucose, A1C, fasting insulin on everybody, because that's the key to early detection. And I also look at triglycerides and uric acid if I'm really looking at glucose metabolism glitches. Another thing you need to take a closer look at is not just lipid health. Like a lot of people have high cholesterol. I'm looking at the breakdown of those nutrients. I'm looking at C-reactive protein, which is an inflammatory marker. So when you're looking at these things big picture, because one problem leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, and then you're like, oh, I have all these problems. They've been developing for years and years and years and years. So if you get the right testing and if you work with the right type of practitioner that understands nutrition, that's maybe a little bit more open-minded to these tests that any doctor can run, you can really turn that metabolic train around. It is not an inevitability that you're going to develop cardiovascular disease. It's not an inevitability you're going to become diabetic. It's not an inevitability that your thyroid's going to fail. If you catch these things early, you can prevent them from failing. So if you like this message and you want to work with somebody on my team, somebody like-minded who's looking at root cause issues, feel free to reach out to the Wellness Connection. And myself or somebody on my functional medicine team would be more than happy to help you get access to the right testing and the right lifestyle, dietary, nutritional protocols to turn this metabolic ship around. All the links are in the description. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.